Bună ziua tuturor! Am plăcerea să vă urez bun venit în numele EY. Vă mulțumesc pentru interesul dumneavoastră de a participa la acest seminar virtual organizat de noi privind tehnologii emergente în sectorul public guvernamental și managementul fondurilor europene în România în acest context. În mod special mă refer la provocările aduse de pandemia coronavirus, intensificarea colaborării în format digital, telemuncă și altele. Suntem onorați să vă avem printre noi în aceste dezbateri și vă încurajăm să participați cu întrebări sau idei pe parcursul seminarului pe care le puteți transmite apăsând butonul Q&A poziționat în partea de jos a ecranului. În același timp, am rezervat timp la sfârșitul prezentărilor pentru a răspunde întrebărilor dumneavoastră care pot fi formulate în limba română sau engleză. O copie a prezentărilor va fi făcută disponibilă tuturor la sfârșitul seminarului. Deoarece am invitat în panel speaker care nu vorbesc limba română, vă rugăm să aveți îngăduința să acceptați ca prezentările și discuțiile să se desfășoare în limba engleză pe parcursul seminarului. Așadar, I will switch to English language. Hello everyone. In behalf of EY, I have the pleasure to welcome you to our webinar about disruptive technologies and management of European funds in Romania. Thank you for your interest to participate to these discussions upon such important topics for all of us in the actual context, specifically related to coronavirus pandemic challenges. As rapid transformation of human interaction into a virtual one, professional collaboration become digital and significant part of labor within government transformed into remote working. We are honored to have you accepted to attend to our discussions and encouraging you to participate with questions and ideas during the webinar. By presenting the Q&A button that you can find at the bottom of your screen, at the end of the presentation, we scheduled 15 minutes to answer to your questions that could be addressed either in English or Romanian language. We will make available to all of you a copy of our presentations. Having said that, I have now the pleasure to briefly introduce to you the panelists. So, I am Carmen Adamescu. I am a partner in EY Romania, leading technology consulting and also government and public sector for Romania and Moldova. I will be your host during this webinar. We have today in the panel some of the very important guests. Alessandro Cenderello is EY Managing Partner for EY EU institutions, who will share with us EY and EU connecting experience. Then we have Arturas Filiponis, who is EY Digital Leader for EU institutions, who will be talking about digitalization as top priority on EU agenda. Then we have Michele Giove, Senior Manager in EY Romania, dedicated to government and public sector services, sharing with you the experience of EY with disruptive technologies and management of European funds. So, Alessandro, I am kindly inviting you to take over the floor.
Thank you, Carmen. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. So thank you, Carmen, for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me to this webinar. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be with you today. Yes, here we go. So I thought about giving the participants an overview of the work we are doing with the EU institutions, and especially focusing on two themes that are more and more becoming relevant also in the framework of the evolving discussions around the new budget for the EU. And the focus will be mainly on the European structural investment funds elements, but also the relationship and the growing connection with the structural reforms and the discussions ongoing on the EU Recovery and Resilience Facility. That might be, I thought, interesting for all the participants. So as you said, my role at UI is to coordinate all the activities we deliver as UI for the EU institutions. The EU is one of the marquee clients for UI, so there is a high level of priority attached to serving the institutions with all our best resources we have. And the client spans from the European Commission to all the other, let's say, key stakeholders that are part of the EU ecosystems, including the European Parliament, European Central Bank, the European Investment Bank. So it's quite an articulated set of sub-clients, if you allow me. Combined together, this is one of the largest EY clients globally. How we serve them, for us, is very important, of course, to align with the strategic priorities of the client and to contribute as EY to the European integration in a broad sense, so with a strong focus at the moment on everything that is related to sustainability, digital transformation, and skills and talent. So we have a very strong focus on helping the EU to deliver on the priorities they have through the European budget, but also to help the institutions to transform and modernize themselves. You can see in this slide, at the bottom of the slide, an example of some projects that are probably explicative of the type of work we do for the EU and the diversity also of expertise that we bring. So for instance, we do a lot of work for DG Reform that is in charge of helping the member states, the European member states, in implementing structural reforms. And we will talk a little bit more in detail about that later, but we also do a lot of compliance and audits on the way the money spent through the EU budget is used by the beneficiaries and the member states. We do also a lot of work around infrastructure and transport. Digital is very important, and also in combination with helping neighborhood countries to align with the EU standards for digital. And I've heard that there are also participants from Moldova, because we also cover Eastern Partnership countries, and Moldova is an active participant to some of the projects we implement on behalf of the Commission. And also we are more and more active on how the new technologies are impacting several aspects of our society and the business, including artificial intelligence, blockchain, big data, and so on and so forth. What is important is that we are delivering our services through a set of specialized teams. So teams that know very well the specific policy fields where we are focusing on, but also that can connect and bring the best of EY depending on the themes. We have 6, I would say, priority themes. The green development and the resilient infrastructure is one of our priorities. So everything related to the European Green Deal and sustainability, and the helping the member states to now to meet the challenging zero emission targets that we have in Europe, that we have adopted in Europe through the Green Deal. Digital transformation, especially focusing on government services, is a big domain of work for us. And Arturas, that is with us, will surely tell us more about this. Everything that is related to compliance, risk, and audits of the spend. So how EU money is used and the respect of the financial regulations is an area where we have really specialized teams. And also more and more we focus on the external aid dimension, so helping neighborhood countries to be closer to Europe, and in some cases where they are in the accession process to become part of the EU. So we assist them in meeting the requirements that are needed to become EU members or to develop the partnership with the European Union. Also, the HR talent, as we say, is becoming a growing domain for us. We advise the Commission and several EU agencies and institutions on their HR processes. And last but not least, the element of structural reform. So how the EU member states, also using the cohesion money, can modernize themselves, become more competitive, more attractive to foreign investments, and also can create a business environment that is more supportive to SMEs and entrepreneurs. Another element on how we serve from the point of view of competencies, we have 4, as we call them, center of excellence. Let's say virtual networks of EY experts that we mobilize to serve the EU institutions as a client. And one of them is on the audit of EU funds. One of them is specialized in climate change and circular economy. One of them, led by Arturas Piliponis, is on the e-government. And also we have set up a center of excellence that is dedicated to the acceleration of structural reforms in the member states. So the role of this center of excellence basically is, of course, to help our teams all over Europe to share insights and the experience we have to develop knowledge that we can share among clients. So it's very important to underline that the role of the center of excellence is to serve the Commission, but also to bring the knowledge to the teams we have in the member states. And so to make sure that the insights we have by serving the Commission is shared and brought to the client, that are governments and regions and local authorities in the member states. Make sure that we have the best of EY when we deliver our services, and also network our teams and connect them. And last but not least, I would say number 4, it is very important when we talk about circular economy, for instance, or sustainability or climate change, that we bring the experience we have with private sector clients that are transforming themselves or trying to become, let's say, less pollutant or decrease their impact on the environment, to bring this knowledge, this experience to the policymakers, to the government sector that has to define programs or implement and design policies, so that they design policies that are aligned with the needs and are supporting the private sector in the challenges they have in becoming more sustainable as a business. I would not focus on the government because I'm sure Arturas will talk about it, but one point that is very important is that we have a coverage, global coverage, but also in Europe, in the EU member states, we cover all the 27 member states, and our teams that are serving government clients in these member states are highly connected, and we have a very strong exchange of good practice. We bring to the EU institutions the experience we have in the member states, and vice versa. We learn what we learn by working with the EU and the European Commission is brought back to the member states and shared so that they can develop and design policies that are aligned with the priorities of the EU. So with this setup, of course, we we can make a difference, I think, as UI. So when we talk about the, sorry, this slide is, there is still, okay, there is still a piece in Italian, I see. So, when we advise government clients and the Commission, DG Regio and the other DGs of the Commission that are dealing with EU structural investment funds, we cover the entire programming cycle. So we start from the advice we give in designing the programs and make sure that they are approved by the Commission, but also defining what is the best way to implement them. So what are the how can we make sure that the managing authorities and the monitoring authorities and the audit authorities that are there to supervise or implement the programs are organized in the best way. Also focusing a lot more and more on financial instruments because they are playing a bigger role, and it will be even more so in the future. We do a lot of capacity building and knowledge transfer, learning and development on how the managing authorities, especially, and their workforce can be updated on the new requirements that inevitably at the beginning of every programming cycle are changing. And also we help in building the pipeline of operations or projects that will have to be fed into the programs, monitor and evaluate the outcomes of the programs, and last but not least, auditing and controlling the expenditure to make sure that the requirements and the financial regulations are respected. And if you look at the thematic fields of the structural investment funds, we do this across all the 11 priority fields that we have in the current programming cycle. One other aspect that is important is the link with the structural reforms that is becoming more and more important. Probably you are following the debate around the new recovery and resilience facility that is part of the new budget of the EU, and it's part of the let's say next generation Europe. So the response to the COVID pandemic that is coming from the EU to help the member states to recover first of all, but also to become more resilient. And so the structural reforms will be an embedded element of the new programming cycle, with the idea that the EU money will be used now to provide large-scale financial support to reforms and investments undertaken by the member states. So this is an area that is already in place, but that will become even more important in the next programming cycle. Currently, DG Reform is managing a budget that is used to support member states in public sector transformation, and this covers already a broad set of thematic domains from governance, public finance management and revenue administration, business environment and SMEs, labor, education, social services, and financial sector. So it's a very broad set of domains that are covered, and we are, as UI, we are very active. We have the pleasure to be part of the providers of services to DG Reform, and we are active in many member states in all these domains to help them to design and implement structural reforms. It is important to underline, maybe for your information, the cycle, because this is a bottom-up program. So the member states, the authorities, the ministries, but in some cases also regions, have to propose to the Commission ideas for structural reforms. There is a deadline every year on October 31st, and then a selection process, and then through the framework contracts, the DG Reform is making sure that there are consultants as UI that can deliver services and help the member state in implementing the project that they have designed. In the future, I think this process will become even more complex because the proposal from the Commission is that every member state will have to prepare so-called recovery and resilience plans that can be submitted before the 30th of April of every year, and these plans will have to include reforms and public investments that are needed at country level, but in a coherent package. Most of the focus, just to come back to our priorities as EY, will be on green and digital transformation. So I think that the combination, I would say, of the European Green Deal, the digital transformation strategy, and structural reforms will become a very strong element for the future EU budget and the way of working. And just concluding my presentation, just a quick focus on what will be how the European Green Deal will play a central role in supporting structural reforms. We already have seen that the Commission is asking to prioritize certain type of initiatives and investments in this domain. So here you see what are the recommendations coming from the Commission. So investment climate is the first one, helping member states to boost their productivity and long-term competitiveness. Public assets will play a central role in how they can be used to accelerate various reforms. Natural resources, how they're used in the member states, energy and climate, and also the element of just transition. So is the element of supporting decarbonization in SMEs and but also in large companies, I would say. So having said that, with this overview, I hope that what I shared was interesting for you, and I'm happy to answer questions if there is any, and I leave the floor to the next speaker. Thank you.
So good afternoon. I'm Artūras Piliponis. As it was already introduced, I'm leading digital services for EU institutions. It is my pleasure to be here, and thank you, Carmen and Romanian team for this opportunity to be in this discussion. A few words about my background and where I'm coming from. In addition to having the role which I just mentioned, I as well worked across a number of different geographies historically in Middle East countries, in Europe, in Africa. Currently, I'm responsible for a project which is dedicated to transforming digital agendas of 6 Eastern Partnership countries, including Moldova, called EU for Digital Project, which addresses a number of government and digital thematics which could be relevant even for our today's discussion, because it's about approximating Eastern Partnership countries to EU digital single market in the topics like e-health, trust and security, e-trade, digital skills, and the like. And today I wanted to start our meeting from basically kind of tapping into today's realities. And rather than going and talking about the COVID and impact, I just want to stress one important element. What I see is visible across different administrations in different geographies, is that this COVID, apart from being really a disaster for the health, well-being, and economies of the country, is actually a perfect stress test for digital government ecosystem as a whole. Yeah? And it changes the perceptions, because before number of stakeholders were thinking, okay, it's a modern, we need to digitalize, we need to work on that. So that's why we are doing one another project. And of course, there is some benefit behind, but what we've seen in the context of COVID, it's a must, it's a necessity. Basically, it defines how well you are doing or will do economically as a country, how happy the citizens will be. The second wave is is on the way, as some people say. So the question is how the environment we have is aligned with this, and how sustainable it is. Yeah. So and then discussing, looking how the governments react and what is the thinking. You always come to the point of so how do we compare to other countries? So how do we look in terms of the different aspects, be it the human capital, being it the digital services and the like? And you can see, and I'll share later on what are the developments in Europe, that number of administrations, they're really rethinking their digital strategies. Even if they have them in place, they start thinking, so how does it fit into this new context? And as an example, on the screen, you can see the Australia's the vision. So world-leading digital services for the benefits of all Australians, with very specific action items and monitoring mechanism how they develop. So I think what I wanted to share here, when thinking about so digital government, so do we really understand what are our gaps, what are the impacts, meaning the priorities, and how we address them? And by saying how we address them, it's not if we address them, it's how fast, how effective we put. And I've seen a number of European countries that compared to the previous funding periods, EU funding periods, this period, the money absorption was not that fast, yeah, or maybe even that effective. On the other hand, there is a boost in maturity on what's available on the EU level, on what the Commission proposes. There is a set of digital single infrastructure components which made their way from being very few and kind of idea-based to like turning into the actual instruments and still being developed. So the good question is how countries, and Romania in particular, are tapping into that, how you are planning to use this. And then to close on this slide, I went through the last DESI statistics, the results, and the conclusion could be that Romania is a country that has a lot to improve, which is good, which means that if you focus and do right, there's a great progress ahead of you. Yeah? Going forward, the slide. Yeah. So going forward, how EU is responding. I'm sure those who follow, you know this is not a new information, but some years back and recently there are a number of important documents published which lay out Europe response to digitalization needs. And as the Commission President von der Leyen stressed, that Europe needs to lead transition to new digital world. And digital is seen as among few top priorities. Therefore, all actions, the funding, and everything will be centered around that. And then the question is how Romania finds itself in this picture. Yeah? So like I'll go briefly through a few components which are here on the screen. So starting from very recently published communication shaping Europe's digital future. Yeah? And it has laid out three strategic dimensions or goals. One being focused on the technology for the people, which encapsulates the artificial intelligence component, and the white paper on artificial intelligence options for legislative framework and the like are already published together with this communication. You can find it on the net. But there will be follow-up on artificial intelligence in the areas of safety, fundamental rights, and data. Yeah. Then digital education action plan is being is planned to be put in place soon, and overall direction of building the cutting-edge digital capabilities is very clear. Second objective is on the digital single market. And as you can see, there was a strategy, digital single market, that clearly laid out directions. But it is clear we have to reinforce it even more, focusing on the data. And there is a data strategy, although also you can see on the screen, published very recently. Which states the key directions, including the data governance, creation of data spaces, and the like. Yeah? And this is a very, very important direction because without having the unified, standardized, and aligned language to make sure that data interoperability is smooth, it will be very, very difficult to really make an effective digital single market. And I can share my practical experience now working with the Eastern Partnership countries and approximating them to digital single market. At the same time, we kind of take what exists in Europe, what Europe is developing, and trying to blend with the Eastern Partnership thinking. You can see that even in Europe, there is a big gap to close overall, and then for the particular countries, kind of it's very evident. Yeah, and the third direction from this shaping Europe's digital future communication is focused on open and sustainable society. Yeah, so it's about the internal market for digital services and the related topics. So now going forward, and probably I will not tap into big details, but on the Commission side, on European Commission side, there are a few important strategies published. So European Commission Digital Strategy and European Commission Cloud Strategy. And they set out the principles on how the system should work, yeah, and the principles of digital by default, once only, security, user centricity are very, very clearly embedded. And what I recommend talking to my clients in member states and in Eastern Partnership countries, that we definitely should be aligned with this. So Europe is building the backbone, and countries have to take it and innovate and build on that. Only with such approach, the digital single market and fluent interoperability can be ensured. Yeah. In terms of the cloud topic, Europe has tried to go into the cloud direction since a number of years back. The first initiative called Cloud One was not success at all. There were many lessons how not to do and how to do it differently. So now there is a new strategy in place with very clear direction covering different areas of Commission functioning, the workplace, security, digital policy solutions, reusable solutions, data and digital infrastructure, and there are clear directions for that. So to be brief, it's cloud-first approach. So where possible, cloud, public cloud should be used. This brings clarity. At the same time, it brings set of challenges, and I expect you share them as well. It's easier to say than to do because number of the solutions that you have, that Europe has, they are built on the legacy standards, frameworks, languages, and they are not easily transferable to the cloud, or even if you do that, then you can use just the lowest maturity of the cloud services. Therefore, you as a country have to have clear direction of how you address workplace, how you address reusable solutions, what solutions you just rehost, lift and shift, what you rebuild partially just to better fit cloud environment, and what you rebuild from scratch or make it new. In addition, you also took the direction that we are not going to invent the wheel. We take as much standard as possible, and this is a classical approach. It's very difficult to do. So, but now the direction is very clear. We take and reuse what's available in the market with the least possible changes, because it's more effective, more economic, and the like. Okay, then. Just to finish, what is here is I just wanted to emphasize the digital single infrastructure component, and that it really is up there. You can really easily access it, you can reuse it, and by doing that, you will have much better alignment with what is to come, meaning converging towards single operations, single market. Yeah. Okay, moving forward. So what we as an organization do for our clients, for EU institutions and member states. So it's rather aligned with what I presented. So the topics of digital strategy are currently at the top. And what we can see that Spain is currently reviewing, and we're helping them with a review of administration digital strategy. Italy is in the process of review their digital strategy. Cyprus is reorganizing the governance of the digital, merging different units and kind of making it much more structured and focused and specialized to address the digital challenges. The digital journey and service design. Everything what we do, what other countries do, they put citizen or user or customer, whatever you call it, at the center. So I know from the discussions with Carmen, you did a great job as well in Romania by reviewing the services, applying the user-centric approach, and putting the new architecture, framework, and processes, which is really the right direction. The question is how, as I said, how you will make it happen, how fast you will go. Cloud. Many EU countries really are taking the public cloud direction. Of course, there will always be an element that you will keep on premise, but that is clear. We've done a number of projects in the Baltics and in other regions related to that. Data, very, very hot topic. If to think on the economical benefits, on the use of different solutions, it's based on data. And in many cases, we see that the data is not clearly defined, structured, not just among the countries, but in the country itself. So, kind of players realize that this is an important issue, both on EU institution side as well as in a member state. And the projects like data governance, data platform establishment, data lakes establishments are happening as we speak. And one project which we are currently doing for Estonia, it's related to data governance. And Estonia traditionally was seen as the country with rather good digital government or leading digital government. But still, the truth is that there is a rather big gap to close, and Estonia is taking actions towards that. So this is a short overview from my side on the challenges we all are facing on the developments at EU institution side, then at how you can tackle the challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alessandro. Thank you very much, Arturas. I think it's now the high time to show you briefly what Romania is doing, or what we are doing together with government institutions. Therefore, so I'd like to briefly give you an overview upon the project we are closing now, developed with Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, which is now transformed into Agency for Digitalization in Romania. So I think there are important steps that Romanian government and all the institutions did on this respect towards this digitalization. And I'd like to share with you the results of the EGovernment project we developed together with most of you in Romania up to now. There are 2 years by now. We closed most of the deliverables. It is only the public policy for digitalization which will be soon published for public consultation. But in the meantime, what we did within the e-government project in Romania was to set the digital agenda to enable digitalization of the electronic public services, which we are calling the live events, 36 live events. Very briefly, I'm pretty much sure that you can hardly see this screen, which is actually a mural, okay, and supposed to be seen within a very big screen in a physical room. The idea was to start from the current analysis of the current situation to design the future architecture, digital government architecture, and digital public services for the selected live events, which you have on the right hand, and I will show you very brief how it works. To have the information system architecture, to analyze and propose opportunities and solutions, to set the interoperability requirements and standards, and last but not least, to propose the public policy for digitalization for the Romanian government, and of course to make all the recommendations for change management. be there to reach the target picture. This is the conceptual vision of the entire work we did within the digital government, e-government project in Romania, and we use the TOGAF methodology for enterprise architecture. So very, very briefly, because it will be possible to show you all the results, which are actually included into this mural. By touching screen, we can actually access the live real documents, real deliverables. But we won't do that because there are too many for the time being at this event. But anyhow, they are published on Ministry of Communication website and now on Agency for Digitalization website. So they are public documents you can consult. So the specific objectives, very briefly, of the project was reducing fragmentation of public services and designing the live event concept, was a governance for digital government, ensuring legislative, procedural, and operational framework, was promoting digital initiatives for citizens and taxpayers, was to show reference, to use reference models from the European Union, best practices, standards, and necessary legislative changes supporting the digital initiatives in government. And this is one of the most important part of the project, because otherwise we cannot implement any digital public service in Romania. Was to promote transparency and openness while assuring confidentiality and security in government in Romania in digital context. Was to continuous development and sustainability of digital government, fostering innovation, maximizing digital investment in government. Okay, I know it is probably shown difficult into the screen, but I'm slowly moving the mural. I do hope that you can see reasonably good. So the results of the project, So what we did was to study 36 live events and to discover all the processes behind supporting these 36 live events, as is and to be proposed to be architecture for all live events, respectively, electronic public services. We involved more than 35 institutions, government institutions. We conducted more than 250 interviews. We digitalized, we did the design for digitalization of 110 processes. We proposed more than 90 legislative changes. We documented more than 70 IT systems existing into the government right now, government institutions right now, and we did training for more than 320 people, public servants and other public representatives. What we also did was assessing the maturity level of the government institutions. We also looked into overcoming digital transformations barriers in Romania and recommending the best path for digital transformation meantime. And I think what I wanted to show you more, and I'm moving very slowly with this mural so that you can reasonably see partially what is about. I will briefly show one or two live events for you to understand what is about. So we discovered as is and designed the 2B process for starting a business, selling or purchasing a business, amendments in the operation of the business. These are only 3 examples from Romanian registry ONRC agency. We also helped the Ministry of Labor with accident at work and working capacity, retirement, disability, living allowance registration. Programming a medical consult in a hospital, very important. So if I take this example, you can see here that we designed the entire to-be process. So behind these murals, all these documents are available for the public institutions to use and to build the implementation processes so that we will really have a real digitalization in Romania very soon. And last but not least, what needs to be done is in Romania, the implementation, creating the future of public services in Romania, which means we are designing the public policy based on which the government should have an implementation strategy, execution, and by the end of the next budgetary period, 2021-2027, maybe we will have all of this story already implemented and functional for citizens in Romania, but also for public institutions. So I hope it was interesting for you. I'd like to go back to the presentation and hand over to Michele Giove. Thank you very much, Michele.
So thanks a lot, Carmen. I hope you can all hear me. Thanks a lot. So this will be the last intervention of this seminar. Then we will have time for answering to your questions. We have seen so far, we have discussed a lot about digital transformation, e-government, and how these are strong priorities at European level, but also in all member states. And we have seen so far how EY is approaching all these topics, working across countries and also with different government level, let's say. What I would like to present today, it's a bit some practical example that we have implemented during last years, especially in the domain of the management of EU funds. I have been working for almost 15 years, mainly as advisor of different type of institution, as I said, at local, national, and EU level. And I've seen how the challenges have changed in the last years, especially when we were trying to help policymakers in designing programs or policy. 5 or 10 years ago, the great challenge was the fact that data and information were not available. In the last years, we are seeing almost a new problem, in the sense that we are able to have with us a lot of information, a lot of data, but still they are not really used as a valuable asset, and there are a lot of difficulties to use this data really to take really informed decisions. So my intervention today will just briefly recap what have been the main challenges and information needs that we have seen when supporting managing authorities or when helping the European Commission in understanding what are the impacts of the EU funds at member state level. And then we will present a bit what is our approach as EY, basically presenting some solutions that are based on RPA and data visualization and data analytics tool. And then finally, the last elements will be a brief exercise that we did with some open data for Romania. We used some dashboard to show you how eventually some information that are already available for Romania can be displayed and can be analyzed in a more appealing manner. The importance, as I said, the importance of data needs and information needs. In the next programming period, probably the digitalization of the data collection and the transmission of data between member states and the European Commission will be more important. Also because probably most of the data need to be transmitted, especially the monitoring data, electronically and regularly, probably each 2 months. At the same time, the role of the monitoring committee will be also more important because the documents submitted will be required to be publicly available. Again, so a lot of information that needs to be collected, a lot of information that will be available. Now it's important to understand how all this information can really improve the manner that policy and programs are designed and implemented. Here in this slide, we try to summarize a bit the main steps of the program cycles. This is common, let's say, not only for the programs that are supported by European funds. And as we can see in each step for the programming period, when strategic documents are drafted, let's say, and then following for the identification of possible investments, the appraisal of the different projects that are submitted, the financial decision, the implementation and the monitoring, and of course the evaluation. In all of these steps, there is a huge amount of data that are needed, that are collected, that are used, and that are related to a huge amount of different processes. And of course, in each of them, we have identified some challenges that especially managing authorities, intermediate bodies, but also beneficiaries, and we saw as advisors of public institutions, as evaluators, we have also faced. Here are numbered, I mean, just not in terms of importance, but in general, what we have seen is that there are, of course, some delays on the availability of the information, so they are not always available at the moment where they are needed. In different cases, there are data that are stored in different sources, so there is a problem of putting all this data together and having them in a complementary and precise manner. As a consequence, in some cases, this can end up with unreliable or misleading data, so not correct data. Or, and on the other side, sometimes the needed information are not available. Anyway, the possibility of having this information create a lot of administrative burden on different institutions, on managing authorities, service body, but also potential and current beneficiaries. This creates a lot of repetitive and activities with low added value, and a huge problem of data governance issues. It means that these data are, in most of the cases, collected, but not really used for taking informed decision. And of course, a challenge that always public administration are facing, but also beneficiaries, is the lack of the right competencies and the right financial resources. Now, I would like maybe to ask also you, and I ask Andrei if he can relaunch again the poll, the question, just understand if you find yourself in this slide, and if you can eventually choose among these 8 challenges that we have identified as advisors when working with the public administration, if you can eventually select the ones that apply to you. Just to, you will have here, I don't know if you can see on the right of your screen, you have the possibility to choose all the challenges that you are facing in your role or your institution is facing. If you want, we can keep it just 1 minute to you to select and to see a bit if in fact these reflect. After I will show how we have classified these challenges based on our experience. It will be interesting to see currently, based on your experience, what is your main challenge. So Andrei, I cannot see if how much time is okay. It's here, so probably you still have 1 minute. Okay, while waiting for your answer, what we have realized that, as I said, these are the main challenges that we face as advisors, and some of them, they have a huge impact on the everyday business, on the everyday activities that the public administration are facing, but at the same time, for some of them, the possibility of implementing a successful solution are different, and in some cases the cost of implementing the solution is definitely low compared to the benefit of solving this problem. So Andrei, if you confirm that we collect the results, we can eventually we collect answers. If we can show the results. Okay. So as you can see, most of all of them they've been selected, and I see that the most selected are the administrative burdens, limited and update of the information, data stored in different sources, and of course lack of human resources and financial resources. But all the others, all of them, they have at least someone that has faced this type of problem. In fact, this reflects a bit what I was saying before. We classify this based on business relevance. I mean, the really impact on the activities that the public administration are doing, but also the complexity of a possible solution. So in some cases, with the relatively not complex solution, we can really have an important impact on the everyday activities of public administration. How this slide simplify a bit the approach that we have implemented so far, and that is being implemented in different member states with different managing authorities, and I will provide you also some example that is mainly based on three main pillars. The first one is based on implementing automated solutions, so RPA solutions, in the sense that we have designed for our clients some virtual assistants, meaning some software that basically take care of tasks with low added value. So you can imagine with the integration of data from different sources, integration of documents, re-entering some type of data, all activities that are, let's say, sort of standardized but are repeated frequently, and of course for this reason they have also a huge risk in terms of human mistakes when are repeated by very, very frequently and by different people. At the same time, we are counting on some data visualization, data analytics tools and solutions from one side to develop tools basically based on dashboards that can provide a picture as much as possible updated that basically is related to the information available in the monitoring system and all the other information available, and putting all this together can be used to really have an overview of what is the situation of the implementation of a specific program or policy, what are eventual some risks. Together with this, we also developed some possible tools that can be used in a more predictive manner. So to try to understand, based on the risks that are identified when the picture of the program is realized, to try to understand what will be next if some specific action will be taken. Just to clarify a bit, I guess you are all familiar with this type of technology, with data analytics and RPA, but just to clarify in our approach how we intended them. What we have seen in most of the cases, as I said, there is a huge amount of data or information that are available. The majority of the cases, the public administration are, if you look at these charts on the right of the slides, are in this in the beginning of the chart, meaning they are using the data for reporting purposes, and only in some cases for using descriptive statistics in order to understand what happened and why something happened. The idea of using the tools that I spoke before, it's also to move on another level. So try to really use information available to take a decision. So to try to understand what will happen and how we can make something happen based on understanding what are the consequences of some specific actions. At the same time, for RPA solution, as I said, this is a path. The idea is to use the technology and the possibility that some machine can learn and perform cognitive function and start to do what humans do. Of course, the use of robotic process automation, so RPA, is just a step. It's a phase where, let's say, software, so these robots that are mainly software, can just replace human actions. In some cases, more lately, we are mainly using more on the private sectors. We are also the possibility to go and to implement some solution where this software can even not only understand the information they have to process, but also solve a specific problem and learn by and so acting like a human intelligence. How we have applied this type of solution? Some simple example. The first one is applied in Italy. Our client was the Ministry of Interior. The Ministry of Interior is the responsible authorities for this AMIF fund, this Asylum Migration Integration Fund. This is a fund that is available in different member states, really to monitor and manage the migration flows. Because of the specificity of these funds, there were a lot of procedures and information that were required, and especially related to the financial controls. In this case, we have worked with our client to analyze all the processes as they were, especially, as I said, for what concern administrative processes related to financial control. We have analyzed them, how they were performed. So we have redesigned the processes, as well as we have utilized some RPA technology to allow that some of the activities were performed by the software and not anymore by a huge number of people. Of course, in order to do this, we had to combine a really mixed team with different expertise. Experts in EU regulation, experts with technological competencies, but also experts that have been working with the Ministry of Interior, so they really know all the internal procedures of the ministry, but also all the internal procedures applied to these AMIF funds. We had also in this case a nice video that shows exactly how the robot worked. Unfortunately, with this WebEx, it's not possible to show you, but when you will receive the presentation, you will have the video, so you will have an example on how the robot worked for different processes. What is important to underline is a bit what were the results that we achieved. First of all, for all the activities, basically we were talking about 4 main processes. The saving in terms of FTEs was quite impressive, because initially there were 120 FTEs involved, full-time equivalent. So we are talking about not people like full-time human work, let's say, were 120. And after the redesign of the process and the use of the RPA technology, they were involved only 48 FTEs. And also, in terms of effort, because the people change the type of activity that they have to perform, because they have to launch the process, and the software, together with doing the steps that usually were done by human, also was creating some reports, also identifying some possible anomalies. So the role of the employees were more managing these processes in the sense of launching and checking possible anomalies, and then investigating if and where there were the anomalies. This creates, of course, time reduction, because for the software it takes to analyze, definitely less time to do the same job. It's something that can be run 24 hours, 7 days out of 7. So without any break. The risks of doing mistakes, it's of course decreased. So the quality and the accuracy of data definitely increased. And there was also a better satisfaction of employees that sometimes were spending a lot of time with very low added value activities. So this was RPA employed mainly on financial controls, let's say. We have another example for was in Croatia for the Ministry of the Sea, Transport and Infrastructure. In this case, they were managing some EU projects, and they have a situation that reminds me a bit what is emerged here in Romania, because we as EY, we are also performing a technical assistance project with the Ministry of European Funds related to the increase of the evaluation capacity. So we had the possibility to study a bit the quality of the data available in the monitoring system. And in fact, we find that the experience of our colleague in Croatia was quite similar to us. In Croatia, there were a huge amount of data that were registered in an unstructured manner and in different sources. And it was really difficult to combine all this data and to put this data in the, let's say, in the national monitoring system. We were talking about basically 15 processes related to, let's say, the management of EU projects. In this case, also, what has been done has been the redesign of the processes and the introduction of RPA technology solution. And together with this, also the usage, once, let's say, the entire data set was built, also to define some dashboards and some data visualization tools that allowed also policymakers to consult in real time the situation of the implementation of all these projects. Also in this case, the results were quite impressive, because the standardization of different processes and also the form that were used for beneficiary to apply, but also for the financing decision and for the contract that we're using were uniform. And the implementation of automated solution allowed also in this case huge saving in terms of timing that was quantified by our client around at 80% of the time spent, because first of all, there was an increase of the quality of data that were collected, because we're more let's say, uniform. At the same time, most of the activities were done in an automated manner. So, for example, for some of the activities, the time spent was around 20 minutes, while the software could do it in less than 2 minutes. So you can imagine the final impacts in terms of time saved for this. The last example that I want to mention, it's also interesting. This was in France for the Ministry of Solidarity and Health. Basically, they are managing this aid fund for the most deprived people. Also here, there was significant delay in updating the data in the monitoring system. The French one, it's called the Synergie, is the correspondence, let's say, as MIS that you have here in Romania. This creates a huge cash flow risks, especially for the beneficiary, because this creates a huge delay in the reimbursements. How we helped? Also in this case, we help in analyzing the situation as it was, in redesign a bit the processes of data collection, so to try to standardize the manner that the data are collected, and to automate both the data collection but also the transferring of data from the documents that have been used to collect the different data in the Synergie system, so in the national system. Plus, it's important also some quality check were also automated. So also in this case, the software were reporting eventually some anomalies, and in fact, the role of the employees was initially to work with us to redesign the processes, and then to check the possible, let's say, anomalies that the software identified. So, for example, just an example for one process that required the collection and the creation of a data set from 300 files that usually were done in 150 man days. So basically, if it's a person that is working on it, it's almost 1 year, let's say, 10 months of work. While with the software, this was done in a bit more than 24 hours. Also, in this case here, I had a video, but I cannot show you, but you will have. So you can see how this the usage of this automated solution can really facilitate the work of managing authorities and intermediate body. Together with this solution, I mentioned before the data analytics and data visualization tools. We are in the phase of implementing more in this moment, more and different data visualization tools in different countries. In few cases, we have already implemented some predictive solution, but of course, we are working because the predictive solution are really designed based on the needs of our clients, on the needs of the managing authorities. For the data visualization tool, we have a lot of examples here. For example, still from Italy, these are some of the 5 different managing authorities with who we have worked for different national operational program. Just to mention this, our solution was finalist at EU Datathon 2019 competition. That in fact is a competition that is done at EU level and is managed by the European Commission. And what we did, again, we redesigned a bit all the system of data that different managing authorities are using. We introduced some automated solution for the data cleaning and data consistency check. We developed together with our client a list of KPIs that they want to monitor or they want to anyway create to take the decision, or to just simply to have an updated view of the program. this allowed to simplify the data collection, but to give also to different stakeholders within the managing authorities an instrument that is available and accessible 24 hours and 7 days out of 7, and then it's always updated, accessible with very high quality data. Just to give you some example of how they were used. Of course, they can be used to compare the performance of different projects, of different programs, or different or within the same program of different territories. Can be used for monitoring purposes, in terms to monitor irregularities or to have some alerts on critical projects if the financial and physical progress is not advancing. Allow to summarize and to present output results indicators, or to do some analysis related to some strategic objectives, or eventually to other type of themes that the policymakers want to monitor, and allow the geolocalization of the intervention. But just to give you some example of this dashboard. I don't know how much is visible. For example, this is just the presentation of the resources allocated based on the selection procedures used. Or here, for example, we have one specific program, and here for each priority axis, we have, let's say, the amount of the resources that have been allocated, the amount of the resources that have been contracted, the payments that have been done, and the level of certification of the expenditure. So this can allow to appreciate differences among priority axes, for example. The same can be done in this case is for specific objectives. So the possibility are really really different. This is again financial efficiency, let's say. So for it, this is a program. So for each priority axis, we have in this 2 dimension the capacity of using resources, meaning the ratio between the resources allocated and the resources contracted, and the capacity of expenditure, meaning how much of the resources contracted have been already spent. And the size of the bubble here is the total resources allocated to each priority axis. Of course, here you will receive, unfortunately I'm in Italian, but I guess it will not be too complicated to understand. But I would like to conclude my intervention just to give you an example. So I will now share my screen. Let's see if it works. I guess you can see it. This is based on Microsoft Power BI technology. What we did here, very simple, and here we spent few hours to do it. We just extract one file that was available on the old version of the MEFE website. So here you have information related to different operational program. We have 7 operational programs. Of course, now it's not important to really see this data to what is really referred, but just to give you some example of what can be done. And as I said, this was done in few hours with my colleagues that are managing this type of tools. So for example, here you have information about almost 16,000 projects, out of which 1/3 are completed and the rest are just approved. We are talking about an entire allocation of 100 million of RON. And of course, this is the geographical distribution per area. Of course, here, this type of dashboards can be easily explored. So I can select, for example, this operational program. Here is number 4. I don't remember which one it was, but anyway, just to show you. And here I can see what is the situation of this operational program. So we are talking about almost 4,000 projects out of the total that we have there, and of a budget of 22,000 million of RON. And here you have again the geographical distribution that also this can be eventually explored. Even if I click, for example, here on Bucharest Info, I can see in which area exactly they are distributed the project in terms of value. The green line is the value of the projects, the overall value of the project, and the yellow line is the incidence of these projects out of the total. At the same manner, we create others dashboards here related to absorption information. We have the same amount of projects. In that moment, when we extracted a few months ago, because we did this exercise in March. This was in March when we were supposed to do this event face-to-face, let's say. So also in this case, you see the absorption rate. The absorption rate here is distributed by end date of the projects and by operational program. Also in this case, you can select, for example, a program, and you can have the information for each specific program. Again, it's not important to see here exactly the numbers here, but just to give you just an example on, as I said before, very easily can be built some of this solution. And why it's important? Because it's not only important to show and to use this data to understand this data, but these instruments allowed us also to identify some inconsistency in the data that were there in terms of completeness, in terms of presence of unexpected values. For example, this is the variable appel related to which appel the data were related. And as you can see below, the data are inconsistent because is not used the same manner to input the data. So whenever we build this solution, we can also identify immediately also and test the quality of data. So this is everything on my side. As I said, you will receive all the materials, and where you will have also additional details and additional examples. Let me go back to the presentation. And I guess we can close the interventions, all the intervention, and we can leave the floor to you and to the questions for all of us, or if you have a specific question for some of us.
Thank you very much, Michele.
You're welcome.
I think Andrei will help us with the screen. Very interesting presentations and very interesting lesson learned. We still want to allocate a few minutes for questions and answers. And I can see we already got a very important question that I think it was addressed to Alessandro, because it was about innovation hubs that how EY. Alessandro, can you see it?
Yes. I try to give an answer through the chat, but I didn't manage. So I can, if you want, I can answer right now.
Absolutely.
So in digital innovation apps, for all those who do not know them, are an initiative that was launched by the DG Connect, the European Commission, to create, let's say, a network of hotspots across the EU member state that can support digital transformation, especially focusing on smaller companies, SMEs. Providing access to networks of experts that can advise and effectively help SMEs in their digital transformation in a broad sense. So not only the use of digital technologies, but also artificial intelligence and other related technologies that can have an impact on the way the business is managed, but also how services and products are sold and delivered to clients. I think as EY we can definitely collaborate with this network. So the hubs have let's say have a number of point of access locally in regions. And of course, these hubs are relying on different type of competencies, and for sure, EY can be one of the providers of certain services at local level. From what I know, the presence of these hubs was a little bit more successful in let's say mature countries, call it like that. So Germany, France, for instance, and there was an initiative from DG Connect to support a further expansion of the hubs in especially in Eastern European countries. I think that this model is potentially very interesting, but I think it would be also very useful to assess more in depth the let's say the impact and the effectiveness of this initiative in terms of capacity to help SMEs from a real and practical point of view, and also to try to identify some best practices. So where the hubs are well run, what are the better the most successful experiences, solutions, and the best way to put the right governance around the hubs. So for now, I think this is probably an exercise that would be relaunched and rethought a little bit by the Commission based on an analysis of the impact.
Thank you very much, Alessandro. Real interesting everything you shared with us. I can see another question, and I think I should address that. It's regarding by when we are seeing the digital government public services implemented in Romania. What is our estimation? I assume. I can share with you that I know for sure that some of the projects already started the preparation. We are expecting them on the market soon, starting this year. And probably there will be some of the projects to be scheduled to be implemented during the budgetary period 2021 to 2027, for sure. So we'll see how much of it could be realized in the next 1 to 3 years, in the remaining of this year and the next 2 years for implementation, and what would not be possible to complete will be done within the next period, of course, on the European Union funds. I take this opportunity to specify that our project, Digital Government in Romania, was done having the beneficiary Ministry of Communication, now National Agency for Digitalization, but also having in partnership the General Secretary of the government, and of course in cooperation with all the involved institutions, many. So that was my question. If any of my colleagues, panelists, can see any other questions to address, please do so. Okay then. So I will start to thank you very much, my colleagues, panelists, for this interesting presentation and discussion about disruptive technologies, digitalization, digital government effort that not only Romania but many countries in Europe are doing right now. And the European Commission is actively supporting the digitalization of the governments in Europe. So thank you very much for your time and for your effort to put all these things together. I hope it was relevant for all our clients, participants to this event. And of course, I would like to address many thanks for the attendees. I hope the information was relevant for you. And should you have further questions, I think most of you know me or Michele, so please come back to us. We would be happy to connect with you and to answer and to support with whatever questions or ideas you might have. Happy to discuss also after the seminar. Okay, so have a wonderful day. Thank you very much all together.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for
So
invitation.
we are closing.
Have a good day. Bye.
See you
Bye.
soon,
Bye.
hopefully.